Hello everybody, this is AK. I'm back. So this is a bonus video. I haven't made a bonus video in a long time. A bonus video is a second video in the same day, right? Um, I think this is important enough to talk to myself quite urgently, so I decided to make another video today. Of course, if you have been following my blog and my YouTube channel, you know that my investments in DBS, OCBC, and UOB, they have become a pretty substantial part of my portfolio, right? More than 45% of my portfolio, and I have been telling people that it's okay to buy some even at higher prices, right? And if prices fall, we can buy a bit more. If prices crash, we can buy a lot more, right? Because fundamentally, DBS, OCBC, and UOB, these are wonderful businesses. I've said that before. But of course, people will always focus on prices, right? Especially people who don't know any better. They just look at prices and then they get frightened by higher prices. And I've said this, and older readers of my blog might remember, it's okay to pay higher prices sometimes, you know. And when are those times? Is when those investments have become more valuable. So when they are more valuable, it's okay to pay higher prices, right? And of course, the last time I added to my investment in DBS was last year in November. That was at 31.80 per share. And since then, I've been telling people it's okay to buy more DBS shares. Nibble, not gobbling, but nibbling. And for people who are still waiting, it's okay to buy some, right? And when they announced the bonus issue, I think the share price was at 33 or 32 something per share. I say it was okay to buy some as well, and that the bonus issue was not a gimmick, and it was a way for DBS to increase value, unlock value for shareholders. And it's a good way for them to pay, to reduce their CET1 excess cash on hand, and to increase the pace of dividend payout to shareholders, right? Because basically we'll be getting 10% more dividends in future because of this bonus issue, for those of us who are still holding on to those bonus shares anyway, right? So and so far it seems that everything's going swimmingly, right? Everything's going swimmingly. So DBS share price went up to a high of $39, and until quite recently, I was still telling people it's okay to buy some, right? If we haven't gotten our foot in the door, it's okay to buy some. But as the share price has hit a new high, $39, I'm not saying that anymore, because the higher you go, the more there is to fall, right? I mean, that we've heard that before. I mean, at $35, below $35, above, slightly above 35, at 36, I say it was okay to buy some. But now price has gone up by another 10% or more than 10%, right? So if our advice, caution, right? If people are still thinking of adding, of course, if you are adding, it means you're already invested. If I, like, for example, I'm already invested, I'm not adding at this price. And for people who have yet to get in, well, know that there is a lot more room for the share price to fall. If something, if there should be some bad news, right? So if we have the stomach for that, yes, okay, you can buy some, get some skin in the game, but definitely don't bite off bite off more than we can chew, and we might choke. All right, so I'm saying all this also not just from a technical analysis perspective, but also because the Fed has already cut interest rate, and therefore they are well, I wouldn't say they're warning, but they're priming the market for more interest rate cuts, for the rest of the year and for the whole of next year. So we could see interest rates coming down, but from 5.5% all the way down to 3.5%, the Fed rate, right, by end of next year. So although we have said many times before that the banks have other sources of income, that net interest income isn't their only source of income, there will be an impact, right? I'll be very surprised if there isn't any impact on the bank's earnings, right? But of course, their other sources of income will help to pick up the slack to a certain extent, right? For sure, right? But there will be some kind of an impact on the earnings, and it's going to be to the downside, right? So Mr. Piyush Gupta, in his last speech that he gave, said that the DBS expected they expect a 7.5% increase or so in this year's profit over last year's profit. So if you take a look at last year's profit and this year's profit so far, basically what he's suggesting is that in the second half of this year we could see profit lower than the first half of this year, right? But overall, there is still an increase in profit year on year, right? I hope that makes sense. Second half of this year, we'll see lower profit compared to the first half of this year, but overall, profit would still increase compared to last year, right? I think that's basically what he was saying. Now, if that's true, second half of this year lower profit compared to first half of this year, that means going forward into next year, we can expect profit for the full year 2025 to be lower than profits in full year 2024, all else being equal, right? So it depends on how fast their other sources of income can grow in order to pick up the slack, yeah, from a reduced net interest income for the bank, right? So, but he did say that they are now less sensitive to interest rates, suggesting that their other sources of income stronger now, and that is good to hear, right? But what am I doing? I'm just holding on to my investment. I'm just enjoying the dividends. I think the dividends will still come in strong, right? And there's no reason for me to sell unless I want to monetize some of my investment. Monetize some of my investment for what? If I get the money, it'll just add to my war chest, which isn't a bad idea, right? But at this moment, I'm not motivated to do that. If share price were to move even higher, I might actually do something like this. I might actually sell some of my investment in DBS, right? Maybe like for another 10% higher. Then I think the valuation will look really quite stretched, because if we look at that as another 10% higher, then it's fast approaching 2 times book value, which I've said before. That's when Mr. Market felt very euphoric about the banks. They actually gave the banks a valuation of as high as 2 times book value. So if it ever goes up to like $42 per share, 10% higher from where we are, I could possibly sell some of my investment in DBS and just take some profit off the table, right? But as of now, no, right? And if we look at UOB CFO gave a speech also about how honestly they would expect lower interest rates, significantly lower interest rates, to affect a huge part of the bank's growth engine. Those were his words, right? You affect a huge part of the bank's growth engine. So unlike DBS, Mr. Piyush Gupta said that DBS has reduced interest rate sensitivity. Not so the case for UOB, right? So But UOB, like DBS, is going to focus on fee-based income, right, to pick up the slack. And I expect UOB to slash interest rates on savings, like the one account and of course the fixed deposits. And all three banks will do something like this: DBS, OCBC, and UOB. They have to manage their funding costs, right? Their cost of funding has to come down in order to help maintain the net interest margins, right? So for all three banks, I won't be adding to my investments, but for those who are thinking of doing so, just nibble, don't gobble. And if we're new and we're still thinking of starting investing, thinking of getting our feet wet, getting our foot in the door to start positions in DBS, OCBC, and UOB. Small positions, very small positions. I talk about how $50,000, how I would allocate, and at that time in that video I said $10,000 DBS, $15,000 OCBC, $15,000 UOB, and $10,000 in my war chest. But today I think the allocation would be something like $5,000 DBS, $10,000 OCBC, $10,000 UOB, and $25,000 in my war chest, right? So I hope talking to myself has been fun for you. So if AK can do it, so can you. Bye-bye.